Well, good morning, and thank you very much for that, Archdeacon. Can you hear me at the back? Yes. Hurrah! Good. I am the green dots on your map, for those of you who are wondering where North Tyne and Redesdale is, although most of you are probably more familiar with it. Well, I'm getting pretty familiar with it, but I've only been in post since the 19th of May, which is not quite 6 months. If I can convert that into Church of England years for you, it's about 5 minutes. I arrived from the Arthur Rank Centre, which is a charity which seeks to support rural Christians. We want more confident rural Christians in rural places being salt and light in their communities. And so that is what the Arthur Rank Centre tries to achieve. Do check it out, arthurrankcentre.org. It's about as easy as we could make it. And it's worth a look. There is, of course, and I can feel my mother's hand on my shoulder at this point, saying that those who can do, those who can't teach. And so I left the Arthur Rank Centre in order to come to somewhere quite rural. As friends pointed out, this is a case of putting your money where your mouth has been. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Sorry, chaps, for my lot. I'm sure it'll be fine. I grew up in South Warwickshire. We took the signposts out in 1939, just in case, and we didn't really bother to put them back until the council complained in about 1994. I lived in a lodge on the edge of the estate, so I lived 2 miles from anywhere and across fields to my neighbours. But in the village, there were 18 houses and a telephone box. Go on, be impressed. It had a phone box. We had the big house, where obviously the family didn't live anymore, and we had the church. The school had long since closed. The shop and the post office closed in my memory when Mrs. Newbury retired on her 80th birthday. There was no pub or hall, and the last bus left in about 1954. If in my bedroom, in the lodge, on the edge of the estate, I sneezed in the middle of the night, somebody in the village would inquire politely next day how my cold was. Yes? Familiar? Yeah, right. It was not sheep country. So I am not that clued up on sheep, and I'm aware I'm on dodgy ground here, but if I at least admit it, you know where you are. Cattle, on the other hand, quite reliable at moving cattle. Either away or towards, it works. So that is my rural experience. Nobody has addressed the question of what is rural, so I thought I might. I wonder if you'll enjoy this. You live in a rural place if you live anywhere with a population of less than 10,000 people. Yeah, I know. Yeah, even 1,000's pretty packed, isn't it? Yeah, Ballingham's an absolute metropolis where I live. There are 9 million people living in rural places under that definition. Interestingly enough, there are also about 9 million people living inside the M25. So you might like to hope that anybody governing would kind of balance out the needs of the 9 million inside the M25 with the 9 million in rural places. Yeah, I know that too. The result of that is that everybody who makes policy, and I include the Church of England in this, has to rural-proof their policies. I love the idea that we are something that you need to proof against, just in case. Because, of course, the policy is developed in an urban place by people with an urban understanding of the way the world works, and then they assess the impact, do the urban people, that they think it will have on the rural places. And the result is what we live with. I'm really looking forward to the day that we have to urban-proof stuff. Wouldn't that be brilliant? And a bit of me, I'm going off-piste slightly now, would love to lead the revolution that says, let's start the policy in the rural places and see how the urban people like it. I'm aware that's quite divisive, and that is bad for a vicar. So I can't. Church wardens? Anybody? But the provision of healthcare, of education, transport, housing would all look very, very different if the thinking was done in rural places and then rolled out from there. It would, of course, cause absolute havoc in the cities. So, you might be wondering then why I wanted to come to rural places. To be fair, I have always lived in places where I can see trees and green and where I can go and chat to cows, because that's what I need. But the main thing is the people. You lot, you're fab. You really are. We, and I'm going to include myself in this because, are astonishingly skilled, resilient, and self-reliant. Yes? Yes! We know that power cuts happen. So you keep a torch handy. And perhaps if you're really, really keen, if you haven't got the lovely range, you keep your little gas-fired camping stove or whatever it might be. Do we panic when there is no mobile phone signal? No, we do not. Indeed. Do we allow time when we're using the internet? Oh, yes. Are we perpetually surprised when other people have no idea that we need to do these things? Yes, we are. But there are different kinds of rural people. This is slightly scurrilous, because there's the lived here forever. There's the came here 30 years ago. There's the commuters, and you really have to love rural to undertake a serious commute. There's the holiday makers, the second homeowners, the walkers, the cyclists, the motorbikers, the caravanners. There's the moved out lifestyle, there's the upsizers, the downsizers. There's the people who are dumped into social housing, whether they want to be there or not, and the people who would love the social housing that is there but can't get in it. There are the absent friends, the people who cannot find a home in the place where they grew up. There is a massive variety of people. And all of these people form networks, don't you? Yes, Claire. There are plenty of people who work very hard at being community and drawing people together. But it can be quite hard to find everybody and include everybody. And this is where jumping around your script is a terrible thing. But despite all this, and these wide varieties of people, we seldom complain other than the general grumbling. See Michael and the pub. Ask Michael about the pub last night. We don't complain on the whole. What we do is we keep on keeping on. Do we keep on keeping on? Is everybody an experienced keeping on-er? Good. In rural places, we are statistically more likely to ignore a health problem. We will notice we have a little something of a something, or even quite a large something of a something, and we will ignore it because it will get better. Yes? When after 3 weeks it hasn't got better, we might consider taking paracetamol. Or ibuprofen, if we're feeling really stocked up. And we'll do that for a month? You've got to give it time to work, haven't you? 2 months, yeah, well, quite. And then, if it's still there, we might have a chat with a trusted friend. And the outcome of that may be that we probably ought to ring the GP sometime in the next couple of weeks, which will lead to an appointment at some point. God bless our NHS. God bless them. And when we arrive at the GP, We are statistically more likely to be in worse shape than somebody who has come in from a town. We are statistically more likely to be referred somewhere, which will be quite tricky because of the travel and the distance and the logistics and all of those things. And our outcomes are statistically worse. And by worse, I mean we are more likely to have chronic health conditions from an earlier age, and we are more likely to die earlier as a result of those conditions. So when I said I'm going to work in rural Northumberland, many of my friends said, why? In fact, as a former engineer, some of them went, what the... So let me be clear. The attractions were the people, the sense of community, the landscape, churches, possibly in that order. Rural Churches for Everyone got a whole paragraph in the parish profile that I read. And if I'm absolutely honest, I wasn't a lot clearer after I'd read it than I was before. And as a newbie, it took me a little while to catch up, as Yvonne and Philippa will attest. In fact, I'm still catching up on something. Sorry I'm late, okay? Don't get me wrong, I love a good church build. This is a great church build. I've not been here before. It's a great church building. But I was a little bit wary of a project funded by a secular organisation that doesn't fund religion, mission, ministry, all of those things. But hey, it shows there's something happening, somebody's doing something, that's nice. Because whilst at the Arthur Ranks Centre and in my ministry before in assorted dioceses, I have had experience of projects. Trying to maintain the right diplomatic expression. It was quite scary looking at some of them from the realms of the Arthur Ranks Centre. Various projects being run across the UK by various Methodist districts, various URC synod areas, Church in Wales, various Church of England dioceses. Don't be fooled, there is no such thing as the Church of England. There are 42 separate dioceses and Church House Westminster trying frantically to keep a handle on it all. There is no such thing as the Church of England. Well, all of these projects were very focused on one thing. Go on, yes. Bums on seats, thank you. Well, it's not how they termed it, Barb. Sorry about that. I think yours is better. Not quite perfect. They termed it growth. Yes, we're going to have a strategy for growth. In my more undiplomatic moments, I don't even think it's about bums on seats. I think it's about money. But perhaps I'm a tiny bit cynical, just a bit. So I admit to approaching RCfE with a high degree of caution. Although I was somewhat reassured by the research that Yvonne had done, because it covered much the same stuff that I was spending my working life looking at the ARC, which gave me a bit of confidence. That woman. So in my patch, when I sat in the workshop and we were presented with our health statistics, I think they were quite shocking for the people in that workshop. I wasn't actually terribly surprised. I was surprised by how bad it was, but I was expecting it to be bad. However, in the same workshop, I was slightly wide-eyed when Yvonne pointed out the area and population density compared with other places in Newcastle in the Church of England. So I bought a Land Rover, because what else do you do? However, I did carry on looking for the catch, because there are catches. And I have identified some RCfE catches. So for those of you thinking of joining the process, here are the things I think you should beware of. Beware of keeping on keeping on. This process requires honesty. It requires absolute honesty. That's quite a brave position to take. It is very brave to take a hard look at where we are and try to describe it in ways that people outside would look in and agree with. We have to be honest about a number of things. And the first I would suggest is what we're good at. Hands up if you've got something you are really good at. I told you it requires honesty. Come on, hands up if there is something you are actually really rather good at. I'm not going to make you tell me what it is, it's okay. I'm not that nasty. You are all, each of you, whatever faith you hold, whatever spirituality you adopt, you are all beloved children of God, and you are all good at something. You might be a good listener. You might be a good baker. You might be the best gutter clearer this side of Keswick. But you have a skill. You have a gift. And the chances are that in a very small number of people, you are the person with that gift. And it's a good thing to use it. So do try to be honest about your own capabilities, because you are absolutely ruddy wonderful. And I would like you to know that. Because we all have the things we're good at because we have to do them. Safeguarding dashboards. Yeah, yep, I know somebody who is brilliant at safeguarding dashboards, although she does tend to throw her computer through the window after she's finished dealing with them. You know, we all have the things we are good at because we have to be. But there are things that you are good at because God gave you those gifts. Use them. Catch 2. There are many catches. This one also requires honesty. You have to be honest in your assessment of your church and your situation. Not only in terms of the physicality of the building, but also in terms of the strength of connection with the community and the relationships. Our observation at the Arthur Rank Centre during COVID was that despite not meeting as congregations for worship in person for such a long time, the churches which were well connected with their communities tended to thrive and feel positive. The churches which were not well connected with their communities, not so much. Chris, how long have I got? Because I'm away off my script.
You've got 12 minutes.
Hey, loads of time. So I'm going to digress. I was in a meeting during COVID in which I was supposed to be reporting on the state of rural church, what rural churches were doing to help during COVID. It was a meeting convened, thank you. I knew there was a word somewhere. Yes, convened by my then diocesan bishop and the great and good. And they went round the representatives from the town churches. Gosh, they were doing well. They were talking to their councillors. They were getting funding for projects. There was a likelihood that in 2 weeks' time they'd be able to set up a food bank. This was at about week 4 of lockdown. They got to me and I went, well, our village Facebook page, which was not a church Facebook page, but which all the church people were all over like everybody else was, there were offers of shopping, collecting prescriptions, calling in for a socially distanced yell through a window or a chat across the path. There was walks. I'm going to go for a walk about then. So am I. I'll see you the other side of the green. All of those things were happening and had been happening since day 2 of lockdown. Although I didn't tell the meeting about the prescriptions because somebody terribly good and really, really on it from a church had said, soon we're going to have to start collecting prescriptions and that's going to be a whole safeguarding nightmare. If anybody CDMs me at this point, yeah, it's a different world. Oh, catch number 3. I've never told my lovely new patch this, but one of the biggest make or break things for me about whether I took the job was the extent to which the church communities worked together. Because having 9 churches across 330 odd square miles is not a viable job. And the only choice you face is who you're going to disappoint on any given day. Or more positively, you will please some of the people some of the time, and if you're really lucky, it'll be the person actually standing in front of you. That's a real good day. So for me, make or break. Do these communities actually work together? And I think it's a major catch in the process. Because if you have been part of quite a small congregation, full disclosure, I grew up in a very, not literally in a church, but being part of a very small rural church. Well, actually it wasn't small, it was huge. We had around 12 or 14 people. It was massive. And we were the small church compared with the big one down the road. I mean, bear in mind, 18 houses and a phone box compared with, a whole massive community of 2,000 people down the road. We were the little church. So obviously we were going to be closed. Yeah? Obviously we're going to be closed. That was the view when I was 6, and I'm the better part of now. It's still going. It's doing all right. But it's easy to have that mentality that goes, if anybody comes in from outside, they're going to look at us, they're going to look us up and down, they're going to see who we are, what we do, they're going to decide we're a bit rubbish about all of this, and then they're going, God help us, they're going to look at the finances, and they will close us. It's a really easy mentality to get into. It's an exceptionally hard mentality to step out of. And it is really hard to be put in a room with other churches, all of which are obviously doing much better than we are. Yes? And actually to be honest about where we are. But it requires honesty. How many of you have ever been honest about the state of your church? Oh, some people nearly were brave enough to nod or put a hand up. All of you will have to be honest about the state of your churches. Do you know the brilliant thing? So this is a massive catch, but do you know the brilliant thing about being honest about the state of your church? Go on, there must be brilliant things about it. Thank you. You find out you're not alone. That's one brilliant thing. And it's so much nicer. Misery loves company. What else is a great thing about being honest about it? So you can absolutely, if you know where you are, then it's not always too difficult to identify a few steps that will make the world a little better if you listen to other people and you learn things. Because you will discover that something you are doing is actually the best thing since sliced bread. And it will be something blindingly obvious to you because you are rural and you keep on keeping on. If you're going to keep on keeping on, at least talk about it. And you will learn things from other people which will be useful. So being honest was catch 1 and catch 3, and possibly catch 2 as well. There's many catches in our RCfE that worry me. But working together If you can manage that level of disclosure and honesty, by my observation, it's energizing, it's interesting. You make new friends. You discover somebody who can do that job that is not your gift at all. You know, if you end up sharing a party of 4 of you going around all the churches cleaning the gutters with people who actually like cleaning gutters, how good's that? Catch number 4. It can be a bit simple. Because everybody knows it's a project, right? It's going to deliver big, shiny, interesting, exciting. Look at us, we're wonderful. You'll find us on the whole world map, top of the list of. But actually, there's a lot to be said for trusting in the small things. Some of the outcomes and ideas we've got in North Tyne and Redesdale are huge. But some of them are actually incredibly simple and are already making a difference. Well, the one that makes the most difference to my life at this precise moment is getting the light to come on automatically when the church door opens. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, it did take a bit of investment and an electrician. And I know it was in a church which actually has electricity, just for the avoidance of doubt. Made a huge difference to my life. And I was gawping prior to this, I was doing my evidential research. So I had to gawp back through the visitor's book. And you can see the change. We have a great roof. We have a lovely roof. And the light that comes on is the one that points at the roof. It's a great idea. People are writing in the book about the roof. People are going, oh, nice roof. Unusual roof, like the roof. People are noticing something interesting about one of our churches. That's good. But less money is a fresh eye at notice boards, tables at the back of church. Oh, the dumping ground. Envelopes, leaflets, you name it. What's up to date? What do you actually need? What do you actually want somebody who's never been in your church before to notice when they walk in? I love that I've never been here before, and the thing I noticed was the coffee, which I'm assuming is not always here. But I also noticed the incredible beauty of the place and the care that's gone into it. People see things with fresh eyes. So if you're prepared to be honest, you could invite a friend or family member or somebody who has never been in your church to walk in and tell you what they think. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Other things take a bit more work than the notice boards. Big shout out to one of mine, they know who they are. Up to the utmost north, they gave it a massive clean. This is not a church that is packed out with people. This is a church with a faithful and dedicated congregation. And they decided they were going to give the place a clean. They've got some really nice tiles around the altar, really nice. And I think they talked to Robin about the best way to make sure they clean them. They had the idea that, flash mop might not be the ideal for tiles. And they did it. And when you walk in there now, it not only doesn't smell damp, but it looks amazing and it smells great. It's a little thing, although it took a lot of hard work. But it makes such a difference to the feel of the place. And for all the walkers who are dropping in on the way past, they won't know that they're having a different experience because most of them won't have been in it before. They're walking a long distance path, for crying out loud. But they are getting a better experience and their impression will be completely different. It's the little things. I won't even start with the church on Sunday mornings and do you say hello to strangers, but never mind. How are we minutes-wise, please, Chris? 2. Ooh, 5, 6 and 7. Set your expectations. RCfE process is a really good process to go through, and I wholeheartedly commend it. Wholeheartedly. It will benefit you and your churches and your communities. But you do need to set your expectations. If you are in a population of 500 people, you are not going to suddenly fill a church that holds 100 every week. You'll do it from time, funerals, Christmas, the big things, it will fill, I know that. But you're not necessarily going to fill it week by week. But that would give you something to aim at. No harm in setting yourself targets. But I caution you with the tale of a former bishop, whose area I used to be in, who would point very proudly to the midnight communion that he had officiated at, to anyone who would listen, which had drawn 200% of the population of the parish. Yeah, you're ahead of me, aren't you? 20 people in the parish, a few family visitors, 40 sorted. But set your expectations. There's no harm in saying, well, we do want more people to join us. If we seriously think that God is active in this place and that Jesus Christ is our redeeming saviour, then telling a few people and encouraging them to be part of our worshipping, God-given, lively community might be a good thing. So I encourage you, have a crack at this process, because it does have its catches, as I've said, but they're all positives in the end, and you will change what is happening in your place. Well, get on with it then.